They say the perfect game doesn't exist. Well, they can't be right all the time. From the first frame of the reveal trailer, Stellar Blade caught my attention, for some reason. And yeah, I definitely salute Shift Up's bold character designs, but Stellar Blade isn't just sizzle with no steak. The game's not carried by the skin-tight outfits alone, even if it's undoubtedly doing some of the lifting. There's a deep, highly customizable and punishing combat system, mixing melee and third-person shooting with a focus on cues and timing. Set in an immersive post-apocalyptic world that feels familiar yet somehow completely alien. Equal parts dead and yet still bursting with life, hiding secrets, eldritch horrors, and danger around every corner. The story is one of humanity's fight to reclaim their lost home from the alien invaders, and the small group of flawed heroes leading the charge and humanity's last hope. And then there's Eve, a badass who's not just easy on the eyes, but determined not to give up even when all seems lost. Yes, the sizzle is there, but so's the steak. This is a fajita, my friends. It catches everyone's attention with the sizzle, but every bite also tastes so damn good. A fajita that might as well have been made just for me. I review a lot of games on this channel, mostly falling into RPGs, horror, and fanservice games, and Stellar Blade has a solid balance of all three. So yeah, the deck may be stacked in favor of Stellar Blade, but after spending over 50 hours getting all of the trophies and doing absolutely everything, I have a few thoughts about my time with Stellar Blade. Now, I review games after getting 100%, which of course includes all the trophies, but can include a lot more. I think this gives me a more well-rounded view of the game. So sit back, relax, and let's talk about Stellar Blade.
I wonder what it looked like before the war.
What do you think it looked like?
Well, probably upright buildings, well-manicured flora, and living people.
With all of the sequels, remasters, and remakes these days, it's rare to get a new IP, let alone one from a developer you've never heard of, with AAA polish and Sony's full backing. Shift Up is a relatively unknown South Korean developer that specializes in mostly mobile games, like Destiny Child.
Say my name, say my name.
No. But they do tend to feature sexy heroines in lead roles, so they're clearly leaning into their strengths with the character designs in Stellar Blade. Originally announced as Project Eve for PS4, PC, and Xbox One all the way back in 2019. 2019. We were so young, so full of life, so naive. Fast forward to 2022, and the new name Stellar Blade was revealed, now as a PS5 exclusive during PlayStation's State of Play, with a look at the gameplay. Over that 3-year period, Shift Up has formalized an agreement with Sony to become its first Korean second-party studio. Clearly, Sony saw something special in this title. But what got them so excited? What is Stellar Blade?
He's hiding.
Now, I assumed this would be like a character action game with fast, flashy combat, linear stages that lead to insane set pieces where spectacle was prioritized over precision and nuance. But actually, the game has more in common with Bloodborne than Bayonetta. Feeling like Nier Automata in Dark Souls had a baby, and that baby wears a skin-tight bodysuit. Clearly influenced by games like Sekiro Shadows Die Twice and Jedi Fallen Order, it has many of the hallmarks of the Souls-like genre, without being a copy and paste job. Okay, let's get this out of the way, the elephant in the room and what everyone came here to see. You have a little robot, yeah. Like Jack in Gears of War or BD1 in Fallen Order, your drone is like a puppy, always following you around wherever you go. It serves mostly as utility, connecting you like a cell phone to other characters, transforming to use as a gun in combat, or helping you to navigate a world in ruin. Humanity has been driven from Earth after losing a war against alien invaders called Naytiba. To reclaim their home, Eve and her squad are deployed from the colony to fight the Naytiba and take back Earth. Eventually, Eve meets a survivor named Adam, great name by the way, who leads her to Zion, humanity's last surviving city on Earth. He serves to explain this unfamiliar version of Earth to Eve and to us. It's clear she's never been here before, often mystified by simple things like falling rain.
Something is falling from the sky. A strange sensation.
Once you arrive at Zion, a surprisingly large hub, you'll meet various NPCs, learn more about the world, and visit local shops. Here, you take on side quests, a few that are surprisingly deep, but most are an excuse to explore the world. There's a lot more traversal options than I was expecting, as Eve navigates the overgrown cities, sewers, and laboratories. She'll scale walls, swing on ropes, and swim through lakes to unlock paths forward or discover hidden rooms. There's a Metroidvania element to the game, where you'll gain new abilities like a double jump that lets you get to previously inaccessible areas. Chests and secrets are everywhere. You're encouraged to explore and rewarded for doing so. Some locks require codes that are usually hiding in some nearby area. Some others require minigames to unlock, and there's a handful that can go straight to hell. Since these are hiding valuable resources or skins for Eve, I recommend you try to open every one you come across. Scattered throughout the world are supply camps where you'll restore health, retrieve stored items, and level up Eve, though doing so respawns all Naytiba in the surrounding area, similar to the meditation circles in Fallen Order, giving you that risk-reward decision about resting, but knowing you'll have to plow through the enemies again. When you die, and yes, you will die, you'll restart at the last camp. These, in addition to phone booths, act as fast travel, allowing you to jump to any previously discovered fast travel point, which is a convenient way to get around and revisit areas to collect anything you missed. The Nier Automata comparisons are hard to miss, with the hot, emotionless protagonists navigating a post-apocalyptic world, accompanied by ethereal music and a little robot, as larger questions loom in the back of your mind. However, most of the similarities are only skin deep. Stellar Blade doesn't have the layers of depth or pose the same existential questions about what it means to be human woven throughout like in Nier Automata. Though I'd say the mystery behind Eve and the Naytiba are thoroughly compelling and really well done, especially in the last third of the game. Now there's also a lot of religious iconography in things like the characters' names with Adam and Eve, the city of Zion, and even some of the enemy designs. But just like the comparisons to Nier, it's really just skin deep. The focus should definitely be on the gameplay, which thankfully is a freaking blast. I assumed the combat would feel something like Devil May Cry, where combos and spectacle were prioritized over precision and timing. And if you thought the same thing, then we were both wrong. The combat is all about understanding enemy attack patterns, looking for windows to strike, and countering with an emphasis on precise timing. Similar to Dark Souls, you're committed to your actions, so if you start an attack, you can't instantly cancel like Devil May Cry. And this can be unforgiving. Though Eve's faster and more nimble than your usual armor-clad warrior, giving you more flexibility based on speed alone. Now, when you die, you don't lose XP, which is what many associate most closely with the genre, and I suspect most will use as an argument against this being a Souls-like. And yeah, this isn't a straight-up Souls-like. It's not a straight-up character action game either. There really isn't anything else that quite feels like this. Similar to Sekiro, there's a heavy focus on enemy tells, waiting for the perfect moment and parrying their attacks. This not only negates the impacts of their hits, but also builds energy for beta skills, which are special attacks. You'll know when you've successfully parried an enemy's attacks, both in the flash on screen, but also in the clink and signature vibration from the controller. This, by the way, is one of the best uses for the DualSense's haptics and speaker, giving a lot of satisfying feedback. Now if you look just below the enemy's health bar, you can see small yellow icons. This indicates how many parries you need before you can enact Retribution, which are powerful attacks that can wreck enemies, taking off a sizable chunk of their health. Hell yeah. As a complement to parrying, dodging plays a big role in the combat, with an emphasis on perfect timing. Dodging just before getting hit will slow time once you've unlocked the perfect dodge skill. This is similar to Bayonetta's Witch Time ability, letting you get a few extra hits on your enemies while they're briefly slowed. And what I thought worked so well is that neither parrying or dodging are always right. It's not a matter of choosing one or the other. Both have their uses, and you have to get the muscle memory on which to use when. Perfect dodging will fill the burst gauge, which can activate buffs or powerful attacks. Alright, so Eve's a badass sword wielder, slicing and dicing her way through the grotesque alien menace. Pretty cool, huh? But you know what would make that even cooler? Give her some guns. Aw yeah! Now, to be clear, this isn't a shooter. Combat is mostly up close and personal, but the ability to instantly switch from ranged combat can be a lifesaver when surrounded or when you want to get the drop on enemies at a distance. And as you progress, you'll gain new gun types acting as assault rifles, shotguns, homing rockets, and more, with the ability to level them up and add perks to further increase the arsenal on offer. The enemies are a real highlight, both in terms of what they bring to the combat, but also in their designs and in the elements of horror they can often bring. The Naytiba are the invading alien presence that have infested the planet, leaving only a sparse few areas of the entire planet safe. These eldritch horrors range from small humanoid grunts, hiding behind corners waiting to strike, to insect-like creatures that swarm you, overwhelming you with their sheer numbers. They float, swim, crawl, and slither, drawn to Eve and stopping at nothing. There are some that reanimate the corpses of the dead, giving serious Dead Space vibes, where if you only kill the host, they'll find another body to possess. The enemy designs are so consistently creative and horrific that you're on edge throughout. It really felt like a horror game at times as you explore these abandoned ruins, with only the sounds of the echoing hallways and dank corridors, but knowing that creatures could be lurking just out of sight. Eventually, robots and other mechanical enemies are brought into the mix, creating a lot of diverse combat scenarios. And then there are the mid-bosses, which are bigger variants acting as a skill check, hitting harder and using different tactics to turn your insides to the outside. But the standout are the Alpha Naytiba, the big bosses, giant monstrosities that create epic moments of scale and challenge, pushing you harder than any of the hundreds of monsters that came before them. These fights are not just the most difficult, but force you to use every skill at your disposal. If you try to button mash your way to success,
you're gonna have a bad time.
I've definitely played games with harder bosses, but like any worth their salt, you'll likely have to try each boss a few times until you understand their patterns, develop your strategies, and maybe have just a bit of luck. However, I found that as I became more confident in the systems that I relied less on luck, and that's where the satisfaction comes in. Knowing it was all you, your focus, and your battle-hardened skills that take out some towering brute, it just feels so damn good. Not only will you get better, but so will Eve. You'll earn XP as you defeat enemies that you can use at the campsites to unlock new skills or upgrade them, so you can consume less energy, deal more damage, or offer more protection, that type of thing. There's a training area that you can use to test out your new abilities that I found really handy. I normally wouldn't even bother with something like this, but it's really helpful to test out the timing for new skills in various combat conditions, without getting my ass handed to me while figuring it out. You can also upgrade and customize Eve's loadout. Exposines are kits with several perks that you can tailor to your playstyle, like focusing on combos or defense with clusters of effects. Gear are smaller, more individualized buffs, like reduced melee damage, increased combo damage, increased running speed, and more. You'll eventually be able to equip 2 exposines and 4 gears, and you can use the materials you collect to craft new or improved gear. You can also create new nanosuits provided you have the schematic, changing up Eve's look. There's also a bunch of accessories like glasses and earrings and more. which I definitely appreciated. While I and many others revel in the challenge, feeling accomplished when getting past the insurmountable, many are intimidated by tough games. The Get Good crowd from Dark Souls aren't exactly the most welcoming bunch, and many people just want to experience a cool story or want to play a power fantasy right from the start without dedicating their life to mastering a game. Now, Stellar Blade is designed to be tough. While it's not as punishing as many Souls-likes, it's by no means a cakewalk, and to really understand the systems and enemy movements, it will take an investment to get good. However, there are difficulty and support options for those who just want to enjoy the game's story. I think this has been a good shift in design thinking around these types of games. I get that it feels antithetical to the original design philosophy, but since the options are optional, everyone can dial in the game the way they want without alienating a good chunk of potential players. Okay, let's talk about the fan service. It's hard not to notice the hypersexualized design for Eve, based on Korean model Shin Ji-eun, and really, the look of every other human and not so human character. Oh yeah, men and women alike, but let's be honest here, mostly the women are perfectly proportioned with the right amount of physics applied, donning the most insanely over-the-top outfits, being held together with more sheer force of will than actual fabric. And there are a ton of them that you'll collect and sport throughout the adventure. Similar to the skins for Cal Kestis in Fallen Order, albeit with a touch more cleavage, these are among the most prevalent items you'll pick up, strangely strewn about this world, like someone from a distant past raided a Victoria's Secret and took the name literally, burying their treasures where X marks the spot. So yes, Eve's sexy. End of story. Well, not so fast. This may be a bigger deal than you realize. Think about it. Over the past few years, so many main characters look just like average people, with average faces and average bodies, wearing average clothes, and in some cases, way below average. The pendulum certainly swung hard from the mid-2000s, where every game had some impossible proportions and outfits holding on for dear life. You see, there's only been a small handful of overtly sexy characters in mainstream games recently. Bayonetta and 2B from Nier Automata are among the rare exceptions that come to mind, and their designs contributed explicitly to meta-commentaries like sexuality as empowerment in Bayonetta, or the dichotomy of human fragility with the permanence of machines in Nier. And while you could read into the designs for Stellar Blade in all sorts of deep and profound ways, and I'm sure some people will, we have the insight straight from Shift Up CEO Hyung Tae Kim, who said, "Honestly, when I play a game, I would like to see someone who's better looking than myself. That's what I want. I don't want to see something normal. I want to see something more ideal. I think that is very important in a form of entertainment. This is, after all, entertainment targeted for adults." He went on to discuss how video games are unnecessarily scrutinized more than other entertainment mediums, like movies, for having beautiful, sensual characters. He also acknowledged that making video game characters look unrealistically beautiful in this day and age is somewhat of a bold move, considering people tend to have views that are not always positive when it comes to such characters. I think balance in all areas is important. Now, the development team went all in on creating the sexiest possible character designs for Eve. Kim detailed how much attention they put on Eve's back specifically, saying the player is always facing the back of the character when they're playing, and since that's what they see most of, her backside design was pretty important. And it's hard to argue with the logic. Now, why am I spending so much time focused on the sex appeal of this game? It's not like this is some revolutionary idea, right? Well, the industry has shifted further and further away from sex appeal, led by politicians, activists, and Sony themselves. Yeah, once the destination for all types of games, and yes, that included with fan service or more adult-oriented content, they've made a hard pivot in 2018, where they rolled out new guidance for their platforms. Ever since then, PlayStation is generally the most censored of the three main consoles, PC excluded for obvious reasons. But the fact that this game has sex appeal front and center, and Shift Up was signed on as an official second-party developer for Sony, and Stellar Blade is now a PS5 exclusive, is likely a signal from Sony. and that will surely have reverberations throughout the industry, particularly if this game is financially successful. Now, to be clear, what I am not saying, nor am I advocating for, is that every game should now have a heavy dose of cleavage. But I think censorship has been detrimental to all entertainment media, watering down everything until there's no soul left, nothing that separates one project from another. What I hope is this is a signal that developers will have more license to create games with the content they want, giving the power to the consumers to decide what they want to buy and play. And heck, if you like Stellar Blade but don't want all of that yucky sexiness, you can choose more conservative outfits for Eve. Or just don't buy the game. See, choice, and that's what I'm excited about. Check out my deep dive on the history and complicated relationship between video games and fan service if you want to learn more. Now, it's not just the characters that are beautiful. This game stands shoulder to shoulder with any AAA budget game in terms of visuals. But it's not just the sheer graphical power that makes things shine. The art direction and visual design are incredible. The character designs, with their mix of organic and synthetic, are consistently creative. And while some of the earlier areas are a little bit more bland, most of the environments are equal parts jaw-dropping and daunting, using scale to convey the stakes and clutter to show what has been lost over the years. Exploration was made all the more engaging by all of the interesting touches everywhere. The old car you use for scraps, the building you have to climb, all of it tells a story. And that's not to mention the contrast between these beautiful human characters with the grotesque alien creatures or industrial robotic enemies they're fighting. The juxtaposition is consistently stark, creating a clear visual distinction between them. In combat, with all of its flourishes, from subtle cues alerting you to danger to the explosion of particles upon a successful hit, each moment was a real treat. You can choose between performance, resolution, or balanced visual modes. Performance maintains a locked 60 FPS, whereas resolution is noticeably better looking, but at 30 FPS, which I wouldn't recommend. I actually found balanced to be a good, balance, where you still get 1440p but upscaled to 4K, and mostly locked at 60 FPS with only the occasional frame drop. Monica produced a lot of the music for the game, and also worked on Nier Automata, which is instantly evident. The vibe you get from the music when navigating the worlds in both games is really similar. Ethereal vocals accompany a piano and maybe some light percussion, giving an almost dreamlike feel. It's absolutely fantastic, but a bit too samey to Nier Automata to stand on its own without comparison. The rest of the soundscape is great too, particularly the sound effects during combat, with punchy hits that are perfectly separated from the cacophony of sounds when in the fray. Most of the voice acting is decent, if a bit wooden, with Eve taking on the unfeeling monotone delivery for most of the game.
What did you say?
Stellar Blade's main story will take around 25 hours to finish. If you're looking to get all the trophies, you can plan to double that time. There are 43 trophies in all, with a handful tied to the story or killing various bosses. Some for performing various skills or killing a set number of enemies in different and exciting ways. Some for collecting cans, nanosuits, fish. Yeah, you can fish in this game. Most of the others are for maxing out stats like health and unlocking all skills. The last tranche, and probably the most daunting, is unlocking the 3 separate endings. Here's the thing, 2 of the endings require opposite decisions at the end of the game. You can simply reload a save to make the opposite choice. The 3rd ending you'll have to get through New Game Plus, which is a blast to play through, by the way.
Maybe we can get more information in the city, Eve. Think about it.
Now, there aren't any difficulty-related trophies, so this is doable regardless of your skill level. Stellar Blade is so many things. It has influences and explores concepts far and wide. It's a post-apocalyptic sci-fi epic centered on humanity's last hope. It's an existential thought experiment asking about the meaning of it all, why we fight, and what it means to be human, albeit a bit messy. It's a Souls-like, pushing and punishing you until you're battle-hardened and able to tackle even the fiercest threats. It's a vast, expansive, and endlessly explorable world, with fun and flexible traversal mechanics. And it's a visual showcase, both from a technical perspective and yes, with a sexy hero in skin-tight outfits. There are so many different things going on that it shouldn't work. This game should crumble under the weight of so many disparate ideas. But it doesn't. And you know what else? This game just works. No performance issues at all, at launch, which shouldn't have to be celebrated, but think of how often that's not the case. Nor is this game chasing the live service, gacha, or loot box predatory monetization dragons. Stellar Blade is a triumph, and one that will no doubt influence all of gaming with reverberations far and wide. And yeah, Stellar Blade isn't perfect, but it was perfect for me. Okay, you've heard my thoughts on Stellar Blade, and I'd love to hear yours as well, so let's talk about it in the comments down below. If you like what you saw, hit like and of course subscribe, and if you want my thoughts on another game, check out my video right here. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.